Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you're joining us today, there's a good chance you're wrestling with one of the biggest questions in spiritual life. What exactly is worship? For so many of us, it feels like this huge, overwhelming performance. And there's this constant anxiety in the background, asking, am I doing it right? Do I have to be perfect? Am I even good enough for God to notice me?
That feeling is incredibly common, that spiritual confusion, that performance anxiety. It's what happens when we mix up faith with just exhausting effort.
Yeah.
We see the actions, the singing, the volunteering, the quiet time, and we think those are the worship. But what if they're just a response to it? Our mission today is to, well, strip away all that performance anxiety.
I can do that.
By going straight back to your source material, we're peeling back all the layers of tradition and assumption to get to the original meaning. We want grounded answers, not speculation, that can actually resolve this confusion.
So we're diving into the linguistics, the biblical context, to find out what we might have missed. Because if that anxiety is real, then maybe the definition we're using is flawed.
It has to be.
So let's frame this deep dive around that one crucial question for you, the listener. Have we been defining worship all wrong? Let's unpack this and find out.
We absolutely have to start at the root. The origin of the word worship is, I think, surprisingly simple, and it just completely disarms this whole idea of performance.
Okay.
We use the word almost exclusively in a religious sense today, but its origins are, well, they're profoundly practical.
And that takes us back to Old English, which really holds the key here. The word we use is from an Old English term, Worthship.
Worthship, and it's a compound word. You have to look at those two parts separately.
Right, so the first part is worth.
Exactly. Worther, that's W-E-O-R-T-H, and it meant worth, value, dignity. It's about something's inherent significance.
And the second part?
That's Scipe, S-C-I-P-E. It's pronounced like ship, and it just meant a condition, a quality, or state of being.
I love that breakdown, because when you put worth and sight together, the literal meaning is just acknowledging the worth of something.
That's it. Recognizing value and giving something the place its worth deserves.
That is a foundational insight.
Yeah.
And it changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. Worship is not first about actions or songs or rituals. It's primarily about recognition. I mean, if you walk into a museum and see a priceless Rembrandt painting, the respectful hush, the care you take looking at it, that is an acknowledgement of the painting's worth. You aren't earning the right to see it. You are simply responding to its value.
So we've immediately shifted the whole conversation from performance to perspective.
Yeah.
And that directly answers that listener's anxiety about being good enough.
It does.
If worship is a response to God's infinite worth, then my personal fitness level is, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
I'm just responding to the object of worship.
Precisely. And this linguistic insight, this idea of recognizing worth, it's echoed perfectly in the biblical languages. That's what makes the sources so powerful here.
Tell us more about that. What do we see in the Hebrew and the Greek terms?
We see that recognition isn't just a mental thing, it's an embodied response. The main Hebrew word is shaka,
Jashaka.
and it means to bow down, to prostrate oneself. It's an act of yielding to greater worth. You physically lower yourself to say, you are high, I am low.
And the Greek.
The Greek is proskune. It often meant to approach and bow, or even literally to kiss toward. It's this embodied acknowledgement of value that also includes affection or reverence. The physical act just flows from the recognition in the heart.
That makes perfect sense. The body follows what the heart recognizes. You don't bow down to make something worthy. You bow down because you see that it already is.
Right. And this is why Jesus said the Father is seeking true worshipers, people whose response is grounded in reality, not impressive worship, which is just another word for performance.
So if worship starts with this recognition of worth, where does the self, where do I fit in? Because that seems to lead us to a pretty unexpected starting point. Not strength, but humility.
Yes. Most people think worship requires them to stand taller or try harder, but the source material gives us this brilliant, necessary plot twist. True worship begins with humility.
And like the word worship, we probably need to reclaim the original meaning of humility too.
We absolutely do.
Because I think for most people today, when you hear humility, you feel this shrinking, painful sensation. It feels like humiliation.
It does, and that's because the word has been so distorted. We have to go back to its root. Humus.
Humus, that's the Latin word for earth, right? It's oil, ground.
Exactly. To be humble, originally, didn't mean you were engaging in self-loathing or pretending to be small. It just meant being grounded, being real, being at the right height before God. It's a realistic position.
So that resolves the conflict right there. The reason humility feels like humiliation today is because we associate it with weakness, with making ourselves smaller than we are.
But the ancient view was just honesty. Honesty about who God is and who we are not. It's stepping off the performance stage and onto the humus, the ground of reality. A proud heart is too full of itself to receive anything. A humble heart has room.
So if humility is just that grounded position, then it can't be something you work towards. I mean, if I try to achieve humility, I just end up proud of how humble I am.
You see the irony, right? Humility is not an effort. It's a position the heart learns through experience, not performance. Life has a way of teaching this to all of us.
This connects so well to that surprising fact in the sources. God often chose the lowly, the overlooked, not because lowliness is magical.
But because it's real, it's grounded. Think about King Solomon, one of the wisest, richest men ever. He had every reason to rise above the humus.
Right.
And yet, after pursuing everything, wisdom, madness, folly, he concluded it was all like chasing the wind. It's hard to cling to illusions of your own grandeur when you've had that kind of reality check. Humility is just being real.
Okay, so worship is recognizing worth, and that recognition flows from a grounded place of humility. But now we hit the central challenge for so many people. If God is everywhere, if he knows everything, why does the method matter? If my heart is sincere, isn't that enough?
This is what we could call the source problem, and it's crucial. The answer lies in that statement from Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
And when he said that, he wasn't just giving like general directions.
No, he wasn't a divine GPS offering a few suggestions. He was declaring something profound about revelation. He was saying, I'm the chosen way the Father wants to be known.
The chosen way.
Yes. The knowledge of God has to come through Christ, his character, his voice, his love, his spirit, not through our own speculation or inherited traditions or secondhand rumors.
That's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
It means we can't just generate knowledge of God by trying harder or thinking more spiritually. He has to reveal himself.
That's why the sources bring up 1 Corinthians 2. It teaches that the deep things of God cannot be known by human effort alone. They require revelation by the Spirit through Christ. God wants to be known from himself, not from our best guesses about him, however sincere they might be.
And that's where so many of us get lost. The pitfall is always the same.
Yeah.
Worship becomes what I do, my effort, my feelings, my ideas, instead of who he is, God's revealed worth.
And this is exactly why sincerity isn't enough.
Can you break that down? Because sincerity isn't enough can sound a little harsh.
It's not a judgment on the person's passion. It's a warning about the source. I mean, look at the biblical examples. The Jews in Acts 17 were worshiping an unknown God. They were sincere but ignorant. Paul, before his conversion, worshipped with incredible zeal but without truth.
He was actively persecuting the way.
Exactly. And the Samaritan woman, she worshipped with passion, but Jesus told her she was worshiping what you do not know. In every case, the issue wasn't a lack of feeling. The issue was the source of their knowledge.
Okay. This brings us to the final major point that I think hits so many listeners where they live. If my effort isn't the main thing, and knowledge comes through grace, then what about effort? Does grace mean I just sit back and do nothing?
Yes.
Because effort is human. It makes me feel like I'm a part of it. Why do I have to give it up?
That is the universal question, and we see two opposite errors. On one side, you have the burnout crowd trying to earn what God gives for free. That's the religion with sore muscles.
And on the other side, you have spiritual couch potato mode. They assume grace means complete passivity.
Right. But the truth is that grace and effort are two sides of the same coin. They're meant to work together.
So let's define the role of effort carefully.
Effort is good. It's a sign of being alive, of participating. As the source material says, effort is good exercise, but godliness is better training. It's the training that counts.
But the limitation is that effort alone can't save you. It can't transform you. Relying only on our own trying just leads to exhaustion.
That's right. Grace, though, doesn't remove effort. It redirects it. And this is where the analogy of the bird and the wind becomes absolutely indispensable.
I love this analogy. Walk us through it.
Okay, so when a bird flies, is it just muscle power?
No, not at all.
It flaps its wings to catch and use the power of the wind. Grace essentially says, you flap your wings, I'll supply the lift.
That's our effort. That's the participation, the prayer, the reading, the serving, the intentional turning toward God.
Yes. But the actual flight, the rising, comes from the wind, an external power. The bird trusts the strength of the wind, not just its own flapping.
So the Spirit is the wind, grace is the lift, and Christ is the way.
And your heart, once it's grounded in that humus, becomes the wing that learns to trust that power.
That participation isn't weakness. It's not laziness. It's nice. It's meekness. It's strength surrendered to a greater power. It's not the easy path, but it is the path of ease, because the joy of the Lord, the lift of the wind, becomes your strength.
That's exactly what Paul was getting at with the Galatians. Did you start in the spirit, and now you're trying to finish by the flesh? In other words, are you trying to fly without any wind?
Effort surrendered to God actually becomes stronger, not weaker. It sounds like freedom.
It is freedom. It's the composite definition of true worship we've been building this whole time.
So let's put it all together. Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked from the sources and define true worship for the listener. What does that complete picture look like?
True worship is what happens when, 1, humility opens the door, that grounded reality.
Well, Eunice.
2, Christ reveals the Father. He is the true source, the way.
Okay.
3, the Spirit supplies the wind, and grace provides the lift. 4, truth grounds the heart. And 5, our effort aligns with God's strength, not against it.
And finally,
The worth of God awakens the worship in you.
it fundamentally transforms the spiritual life then. Worship isn't something you perform for God. It's your heart responding to his worth, not trying to prove your own. God initiated, God powered, God revealing.
We love because he first loved us. We worship because he first revealed his worth. It's the ultimate collaboration.
We've broken down the anxiety of performance, the burden of effort, and the crisis of knowledge, all by going back to that simple original meaning of recognizing worth. It's a beautiful shift from striving to, well, to soaring.
So if true worship is always God-initiated and God-powered, that leaves a provocative thought for you to carry forward. What aspect of your daily life, something you currently see as exhausting effort, could you surrender right now and just see if the Spirit provides the lift?
What effort could become meekness? That's something potent to take with you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. Until next time, stay curious.